So I ended up going to see Woman King the other day. I actually wasn't going to see that movie. I mean, not that it's a slave movie, but I've reached my quota of slave movies for my life. I don't want to see anymore.
I haven't seen it. I hear you though.
No, I mean,
is it what it includes that or is it...
Yeah, it's in the period of the slave trade, so some of that is shown. And once I saw that, I was just like, Yeah. But you know, I got invited. It was free tickets, so I was like, okay. I mean,
why not?
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
I'll check it out. And you know what? It's interesting because in and around that movie, I've been seeing a lot of back and forth, mixed reactions all over social media.
Right.
And you know, isolated, I can say it's a good movie in terms of, you know, structure of movies. But, you know, as someone of African descent, a black person, I can see where, you know, the mixed feelings were coming from. And, you know, there was a lot I didn't like about the movie's narrative, you know, which happens with quite a few movies, with so-called black movies we get. And to be honest, there's a lot you could pick apart about that movie, get into discussions, but I just think it's part of a bigger conversation. A conversation we were having the other day about, you know, that we got to control our own narrative.
Right.
Is ultimately the solution. Because, you know, it's for so long, people who don't look like us have been telling our stories for one. And to me, that's even, like, we're even starting from there. Like, I would ever attempt to tell any other culture story. Like, I think I understand that experience.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
No, exactly. There would be outrage.
There would be outrage.
Let me talk about what it's like to be a Chinese boy.
Yeah, Chinese. And let me just, I feel I understand that culture.
They'll be upset.
That would never happen. So the fact we even had to fight to get people who look like us telling our stories. And now we're seeing that more and more. But it's not necessarily, okay, it's fixed now. Because these movies are still being funneled through a system that controls us, like, appreciates a certain narrative. They're still having to get these movies cleared. Of course. They still have the understanding, well, it's movies with certain messaging that's going to make it to the big screen. So it's not just about people who look like us. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like we got to start from scratch out here. Yeah. And we got to give the go-ahead to our own movies. Yeah. Because someone's still giving it the go-ahead, and it's not necessarily people who look like us.
Yeah, of course. You still got to deal with the executives, and even if you get to the point where the writers and the director are people who look like us, then you're still dealing with executives. Hollywood is a machine still. So whilst it's still running through the machine, you're still dealing with the fact that we don't entirely control, maybe not even have majority control over the narrative. There's still going to be certain things that are accepted and certain things that aren't. So yeah, until we're in the place where we control it from the ground upwards, where we have the ability, the infrastructure, money, whatever it is, to tell our own stories in whatever form we choose. Because let's be honest, there are many of us telling our stories, whether it's writers, books, and so on and so forth. Not every story is going to come out through that Hollywood machine. So it does exist. Maybe it needs a bit more publicity. Maybe we need to get it out there a bit more. But when you're dealing with those big time movies and movies like that, unless we control or have our own machine to pump it out, to distribute it correctly, to make sure eyes are upon it, and we have that level of control, then we're never going to be able to entirely control the narrative, like you say.
Exactly.
And, you know, I haven't seen Woman King, but a good example is Black Panther. Obviously, we've got the second one coming out soon, right?
Yeah, real soon.
Next few days. But even when you look at the fact, and Black Panther was an important movie. Don't get me wrong. Rising Power Chadwick Boseman played the role.
He gave a lot of children a lot of pride, a lot of us.
A lot of happiness. A lot of happiness came throughout. And it was such an important movie because you saw African culture on display, you saw African power, and so on and so forth. And we spoke about that from a mind's eye point of view, how important it was, because we always used to go back in class and deal with that whole, this is years ago, tell everyone, run our little experiment, if you're going to call it that, and tell everyone, picture a superhero. Yeah. And obviously back then, most of the superheroes coming up would have been Superman, maybe a little Spider-Man, maybe Batman, but I don't count him. Dude ain't got no powers. Shouldn't be on the list.
You really gonna come for Batman on here? This is what it's about now.
Another time. We'll go after Batman another time. The dude has no powers.
Another segment on Batman. We'll do it for you.
Why he's hanging around all these godlike beings and he's got to grapple a couple gadgets and money. But anyway. At least Robert Downey Jr. At least Iron Man can fly. And anyway, it's a different discussion. Don't get me started. But I'm saying what most people would say is they'll say one of those superheroes that obviously don't look like us.
Yeah.
Because that's the main thing that's been, imagery is powerful. That's the main thing that's been flooded into our minds from a young age up until whatever age we are now is the image of the superhero, the image of the hero, the image of the protagonist, the general good guy in a movie, the image of a doctor, the image, whatever it is.
And it wasn't even just that. If you remember, it wasn't even just superheroes. Sometimes we'd say, okay, picture angels.
There you go.
Picture Jesus.
There you go. And obviously they're picturing the imagery that has been pushed out there, which is white people as angels, white people as Jesus, as God, so on and so forth. So if you are picturing that, you understand it has an effect on your subconscious mind, right?
Right.
Even if consciously you're like, yeah, Black power and so on and so forth. Subconsciously, you may view white people as superior because you've been trained to view them as such. All the way through life, you've been seeing them in every important seat, in every important role. So eventually it's like, yeah, okay, well, so they're that and we're this. And so you have to break that subconscious programming as well as the conscious programming, which starts from a young age. So if you give our children images of us in these positions, then you provide them with the opportunity to say, okay, wait, yeah, people who look like me can be this, which is why Black Panther was such an important movie in that way. So we loved it. We was out there watching it. We were Wakandering forever out.
We was
all
out
of that.
here.
Yeah, so we love it. But at the end of the day, it still goes through the machine that we don't control. So first of all, you acknowledge this is still a money decision. How much money did Black Panther make?
A lot.
How much of it did our communities see? So you still deal with that reality. And then you deal with the fact that, okay, you don't control the narrative. What happened at the end of Black Panther? If you ain't seen it by now, I'm not even going to say spoiler alert. But what happened at the end of Black Panther? They opened up Wakanda to the world. When has that been a good idea? When has it been a good idea for a nation that's in charge of itself with a particular an abundance of a particular natural resource to say, yeah, the West, America.
I mean, it's true. It's fact.
When we deal with reality, that wouldn't be a good idea, would it? We know how America deal with when they need a certain natural resource. We know what happens, right? We know what wars take place. We know what lies have been told in the past. So, arts, Iraq, how that works, and countries all around the globe with natural resources, arts them, colonization, conquering. We've been dealing with this for a while, and so they'll take control. So it wouldn't be a good idea, but yet that happened. So from an African perspective, if you're from a Wakandan perspective, obviously Wakandan being fictional, that would open ourselves up to the world. That wouldn't be a good idea, would it? Inevitably, eventually, you think the nature of the beast is that they're going to be like, yeah, okay, we'll accept that we're not in control of this particular natural resource, and if they give it to us, we'll be grateful. If not, we won't. No.
Yeah. And why not start with at least opening up to the rest of Africa? Get them up, grow them, and say, okay, now as a continent, we're in a position where, okay, we're powerful enough to say, okay, let's have relations with the rest of the world and trade and trade deals of that nature. So you're always going to have a side of the narrative that isn't quite what it should be if you think about it. But they control the machine, so you have to accept that if you're going to allow them to keep telling our stories or have an influence over how our stories are told, if that makes sense. So it's true. It just occurred to me, I was watching a movie yesterday. I didn't know what it was about. It's called Queen and Slim. I thought, Daniel Kaluuya, let me check it out.
All right, yeah, I think I heard about that.
Yeah, it happened to be about police brutality in a sense. I had no clue what it was about, actually. And I was like, that's another example, because the narrative of that movie, there's even articles out there saying this movie is not for Black people. I don't know what the messaging was trying to say.
I haven't seen it.
But that's another example.
I haven't seen it, but maybe I'll check that one out. I think I heard about it.
Yeah. And it's, it's two dark-skinned lose in that sense. I was rooting for them, but well, I ain't going to spoil that one, even though it's been out for some years.
Yeah.
But once you see the way it ends and certain scenes in it, I'm just like, this was designed to either trigger and just put us across to have a nature. Especially when we're talking about young black boys. It didn't depict them or depict what they're going through. And that's another one where it's okay. Director of colour, I'm not sure. Black writer. But I come to find out the initial idea of it came from a white man.
Oh, there you go.
So like, why are we even...
There you go.
Why do they even feel comfortable to be touching on our
topics and on our subjects? But that's what I would say. I would agree with that. A lot of what we're going to see out there, whether it's movies or just media in general, is going to be triggering. It's almost designed to do that. Trigger us, get us in a certain state of being. So a lot of what we see is designed
to trigger us. Because think about it. You can put whatever you want in a movie. You can dream the same way we see superheroes is something for... Mostly, right? It's something for kids. Oh, I can dream to be great.
Yeah.
So you can make an ending of a movie or the content of it whatever you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be centered in, triggering realities.
No, it doesn't.
Even some of it not reality.
Yeah, even some of it
could
not
be
reality.
whatever. Something to make us proud or aspire to, but that is not wanted for us.
It's not wanted enough. Not wanted enough. But even beyond movies, just media, even just what they show, things are happening for sure. But what you see and what you're able to see on via way of the media or via way of social media can often be triggering. So you have to be careful. You want to make sure you're taking in the reality of what's going on, but also you don't want to make sure you're watching something over and over again, whether it's your people suffering in a certain way, and you're just having that, and that's just flooding your mind, which is why we spoke about there's been enough slavery movies now. We understand, but that's not a big enough portion of our story on the planet to tell so many stories about it and so little about our great times, so little about what we've achieved, so little about how everything came from us, and so on and so forth. So those are more of the type of stories we need to be seeing in this day and time in order to elevate our consciousness and elevate us to the levels that we once were on the planet. But like you say, will the machine want that? Whether it's the Hollywood machine or the media machine, whatever you call it, they're gonna want. Whilst we're still controlled by this machine, our stories can't be told to the fullest. But with that being said, look out there and search for some of our, whether it's our stories, fiction or fact, being told by our people, children's books, adult books being written. There is content out there that you can seek out. So it's not
even within our tribe, we have those putting out representation for us. Temple Babies comes to mind, of course, and all the rest. So there's people out there working to represent us, our culture, our greatness in all the shades we come in.
Exactly. So we just got to place eyes upon it.
Yes, got to focus the eye there.
Yeah, most definitely. So yeah, but if we want our stories to have 100% the narrative we want to them, the only way that's going to happen is if we do it ourselves.
Exactly.
So.